Anyway, it is troubled times for a lot of football clubs, and they have to generate income where they can. Stirling Albion had an interesting idea. They launched a So You Think You're Good Enough initiative, trials really for players that would come along, pay £200 out of their own pockets, and those deemed good enough would take part in pre-season training.
Wonderful idea.
So you generate cash, and you potentially get some new blood at the club. A win-win. Paul Goodwin is a director at the club. Good afternoon, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
Good afternoon, guys.
It's an interesting one. Whose idea was it?
Well, I've got to claim that one.
Okay.
Could I ask, Paul? Myself and Mr. Hawksby were chatting just before you came on, and Paul said, "Would I do it?" And I said, "Without a doubt." And he said, "You're probably a bit too old now." What was the age range that people decided to pay this money and go for it?
Well, we actually had a few young guys. We had a guy at 16. And we kind of tried not to take his money, and we said, look, maybe you should try out for 19s or something like that, but he was adamant. We also had a chap who was 31, and he was an interesting story, a chap called Steve Morrison. He'd started as a youth at Kilmarnock, played in the first team for Falkirk, was a top goal scorer at one stage, drifted out the game, hadn't kicked a ball for 4 years. Girlfriend saw the ad, and would you believe, at the age of 31, he's one of the guys we're going to invite back for pre-season.
Wow,
that's
what
a great
story that is.
It's fantastic.
That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you what, the film rights for that, they're probably already being sold now.
Now, Jockey Scott, your team manager, watched these trials, and he's invited a good percentage of these guys back. Obviously, ultimately, it's his job on the line. So he doesn't want to waste anybody's time. So you must have unearthed some half-decent players.
No, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, there was a huge chunk of guys came along, and they did think they were good enough, and it's all down to the manager's opinion. So, to be honest, we had a sweepstake between the rest of the directors as to how many we'd invite back, and we reckoned maybe 2 or 3 because he's an old-fashioned type of guy as our jockey. But we were blown away when the number went up to 12. But it was a really good day. It was well organised, and there was nobody saying, "Oh, you took the money off us, you never give us a chance." They all had 2 hours worth of football with the likes of Jockey and Ali Dick, a kind of twice European winner. They're looking after them. We had Sven-Goran Eriksson's scout in Scotland. He was there as well, helping taking one of the teams. And we also did a presentation to all the players, because there were a lot of young guys there who'd been released by bigger clubs who maybe saw us as a stepping stone. But we had our sponsors of the day, a company called First Point USA, who do sports scholarships to the US. They did a presentation. There was 3 or 4 of the guys interested in that. So it's all about showing them different routes to get back into the game. And some of them might, pick that decision up, go to 4 years in America, come back stronger, fitter, and that's one option for them as well. But we do feel we wanted to look after them well and make sure they get the full chance. But I was blown away by 11 people coming back. That was I only had 4, so I lost the sweepstake.
So are your boys at your club fully professional, Paul, all of them, or not?
Well, we're part-time. We're part-time
Right.
professionals, so it's more you would have probably in the conference level in terms of payment and things. So yeah, no, they're all part-time professionals. We have students, we have engineers, we have all sorts of different trades, and it's very much our club's a stepping stone. Really, we like to think. I mean, at the last Scotland-Brazil match, for example, there was 2 players that played for us in the last 5 years playing for the Scotland team. Ian Turner, the goalkeeper, it was at Everton, and Robert Snodgrass, both played for Stirling Albion. So we're a springboard club, but that's what we are, and we don't make any allusions to that.
You mentioned the 16-year-old there that you didn't want to take his money. How did he get on, Paul?
He did okay, and I think what we said to him at the end is, if we're going to do this again next year, come back next year and we'll not charge you.
Okay. And
so, he wasn't on the final list. He didn't make the final cut.
And how did Jockey and Ali tell them they're not good enough? Did they have a button in front of them that when pressed a big X came up?
No, there was nothing as dramatic as that. Well, what they did, and Ali in particular, he actually told a fascinating story where he actually set up the Ajax Academy in South Africa. And he told us, the guys, before we went out to go down to the park to get changed, and he said, look guys, anything can happen. He said, I did this 15 years ago. There was 6 600 guys came along. We didn't have a proper ball. There was no grass in the park. But I found a guy called Bernie McCarthy who went on to have a hugely successful career, as a little 16-year-old. So anything's possible, and, you just need to look at football. It's an interesting business. Look at another story we have up here just now talking about is young Mr. Dobie at Swansea, who was down in the 3rd division in Scotland where nobody wanted him, and he's ended up, not helping Blackpool one year and then helping Swansea to the Premiership a few years later. So it's ups and downs.
Do you think it's a case, Paul? I mean, obviously there'll be a lot of young kids listening to this show and big football fans that play every weekend and are desperate to be found by scouts. Do you think it is a case that if you are good enough, you will be found, or is there a chance you can slip through the net?
Well, I think this probably appeals to kids who've maybe been out at other clubs and have genuinely slipped through the net, or have just never had the chance. We had a centre-back called Andy Graham who came from an amateur side, and it just so happened that the manager a few years ago from Stirling went out, literally was watching a park game. He was passing by, where he taking the dog for a walk, and saw this lad, and he ended up, going into the Scottish Premier League, and he was playing amateur football. And it's just one of those things, managers not only make mistakes, but it's the right place at the right time. Anyway, that's my excuse for why my career didn't go anywhere.
So, this has been a success, so it's raised some revenue for the club, and you've unearthed a few decent players. Is it something you're going to maybe look to do again next year?
Yeah, I think so. We've actually had, since thanks to the help of your good selves and the like in the media, we've had quite a lot of other people come and saying, can I register for the next one? So we're thinking about maybe doing one in the transfer window for players who are going to be released. And I think it's just an opportunity for them, because it is genuinely, there's contracts there to be won. It's just, and there's a manager there who's got vast experience, and an assistant manager as well who know their way around, and come and impress them. And the standard's not so high that it should put people off, but there's a chance. So we've got a little waiting list there. So if there's anybody else fancies it, certainly for next year or the one at Christmas, we'll gladly have them along.
Paul, finally, did you get anyone that turned up with shiny red boots and they looked immaculate but were just absolutely rubbish?
It's funny thing is that when we sit and watch football on a week-to-week basis, we hate, we're old traditionalists like lots of people. We want the black boots, bring them back, start a campaign, guys, please. But no, there wasn't anybody at all really. There was maybe one rather rotund goalkeeper who got a bit of attention from the media who were there on the day, because you just kind of could tell it was unlikely that he was going to make the cut at 5'8" with carrying a few stones extra. But aside of that, I've honestly got to say that that the standard really was quite surprisingly high.
I might have a go next year.
I've got bad news for you, Paul. That was Andy Gorham.
The flying pig.
Yeah. Oh, bit harsh. Paul, thanks very much.
Cheers, Paul.
Thanks very much.
Paul Goodwin,
Bye.
Director at Stirling Albion, telling us a bit about their initiative. It'll be back at Christmas. It's obviously been a bit of a...
I'd love to have a go.
Bit of an earn. Well, get up there. It's 200 quid, Andy. Get up to
Sterling. Do you know what? I may do that.
Going to go for the trial. Make a weekend of it in Stirling.
I'd love to do that.
And
that's how you know you're getting old, when players play for England and you're older than them. When you're thinking, just because when you're growing up, you're thinking 22, 23. I've still got a chance of playing for the first team. I'm just too old now.